Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. It seems OpTic Coach has revealed exactly what's going on with the CDL Map Pool going into the Starter Major 2, with lots of controversy whether Rio would come into the pool over the last couple of days, and if it does, what map it's going to replace. Apparently Rio is in for sure. That's pretty much a done deal between the teams, and Terminal is going to be the map to go. Is this the correct decision? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Just quickly, it was an absolute pleasure to meet all of you that I did last weekend out in Boston. It was such a good time. I did put a little Instagram post up yesterday if you guys want to follow over there with some awesome shots like this from Brian. I just thought this was actually so clean. This is a funny moment as well when like Debbie came on the couch here, because I don't really know all the stuff that's been going over there the last few months, right? I don't think I saw her at Toronto maybe when she was kind of like with Dashy or whatever was going down at the time, but people just wilded out in chat at this point. I had no idea what was going on, so it's funny. But yeah, I don't post that much on Instagram, but I'll try and do more often. Stuff from events as well is quite good. So yeah, that's linked in the top side of the description. Firstly, just a couple of things on Rostermania in terms of if Surge do decide to do something, what will they actually do here? Because Asim is now signed to Boston Breach, Crimp is now signed to the Los Angeles Thieves. So if Seattle Surge do decide to bench Illy, because the rumor that we talked about yesterday was, and obviously there was lots of talk outside of just the decision itself, but as the flanks say, exploring options of benching Illy. So that was maybe the intention, but the question is it actually even worth it? Just because whoever they replace Illy for whatever reason, feels like they're only going to be able to regress, and that has been the question, because guys like Asim and some of the other theoretical top candidates for joining CDL teams, especially some of the more SMG players, that might make sense in terms of making that Seattle team actually make sense in terms of what the role dynamic is going to be, are now signed elsewhere. So there are fewer options than they would maybe otherwise like. Capsule is definitely a possibility, but as I said the other day, who can cap as an SMG duo? I'd have some concerns about that. And actually, Ben J and Asim did say on stream that he needs to work on things in game and out of game. The rumor about this basically is that, you know, waking up a bit late, not turning up to scrims on time, kind of some stuff like that, that was maybe part of the reason why they decided to make a move eventually for Capsule on the Boston side. I feel like Cap was probably going to be gone anyway, to be honest, if they did struggle and needed to make a change. He was the most obvious replacement, really, because Snoopy, very young, very inexperienced, and I think he's got a lot of time to develop, whereas, you know, Capsule's been around the block a couple of times. He would make sense as an option, but I'm just not exactly sure what else Surge will look for now if they are looking to replace Illy. Of course, if Illy was to depart, there would be other opportunities. This was the Minnesota Rockers situation as we see it so far this season, and they had a top 4 placing at Major 1. They honestly, given the fact that they started 0-4, they had 0 points after the first couple of weekends, they were looking pretty shambolic. But Linz has been a revelation for this team. There's no doubt he's been their best player by some margin. Accuracy, technically by the numbers, at least by the lineman numbers, has been their second best player, which I think is probably right based on what we've seen. Accuracy has impressed me more than I expected, to be fair, and I think this game, generally speaking, with the, you know, the movement, the way that it tends to work, the maps, the way they're designed, favours players like Accuracy that can shoot straight. Maybe they don't have the greatest movements, but I feel like players like Accuracy and Attach and Clay and Slasher and these kind of like old guard players that can still shoot straight, but maybe other aspects of the game are lacking somewhat, are actually pretty good at this game compared to maybe where they were previously. So yeah, Accuracy's probably been their second best player so far. Vivid is pretty much doing what you expect Vivid to do. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the engagements, it's pretty much about right. Such an interesting player though, Vivid. I don't think there's anyone in the league that plays quite how Vivid plays. And then Awakening has been their most underwhelming player by some margin. To be fair, his Search and Destroy was at like a 0.5. Now it's at a 0.75. So, you know, he's making strides, I guess, but still damage per round, kills per round. His damage per round actually is like rock bottom of his statistical category for his role in pretty much every single category. He was better on land, that's for sure, which will be a positive, but in the series that they got slammed out of the tournament by OpTic, he had like a 0.6 or whatever across both hard points. So it's not like Awakening, like on land, it's going to be solved and there's no issues anymore. There are potentially still questions there, but the team has upside for sure. If Awakening can do what Awakening normally does, because we are used to looking at Lineman cards where Awakening has 85, 90 or whatever because he's got a 1.2. That is not the case this year, and you might expect that to change. And if it does, then I think these guys can be a force, but if it doesn't, then, well, they might need to consider what they're going to do instead. These, by the way, for FaZe, I mean, I'm not going to lie, these are some of the, you know, the best cards we've seen for a second place team since probably FaZe did it last year. But I mean, look, we've got Simp here with 99 overall, had a ridiculous individual stage, and if not for Toronto playing out of their skin, then Simp, you know, would have had the 99 and the event victory, but that didn't happen. Simp, some of Cell's numbers, again, you gotta say, I mean, highest KD for his role in control in the league, that's really a no surprise at all. His hardpoint actually hasn't been emphatic, but I mean, like 1.14 still, 1.5 in Surge, 1.45 in control, insanely low deaths per 10 as well, compared to some of the other guys here, and then, you know, Simp's been turning it up in the hardpoints. aBeZy's not been bad either at all. I know people have criticised aBeZy for various reasons. I still think he's been pretty good this season, but definitely in the hardpoints hasn't quite been the same. But the Rival 9 is now going to be more of a factor, I think, in this new meta, and the map set change we're going to discuss in a second definitely implies that players like aBeZy should find themselves in a better spot going forward. So that's what we're going to discuss right about now. Before we get into it, just wanted to quickly mention on FormaL, because they were, so last night, OpTic versus FaZe was happening in this, like, Halo online series, whatever they do, basically going into the tournament of the year. This is the roadmap. They do the open series, they do the qualifiers, they do the majors. There's been some questions though, like, what is the future of Halo esports? This happens every time a new Halo arrives. This is why a new CoD every year has its pros and its cons, but it's a lot of pros in the sense that the game is always new every year. Halo has been out for a few years now, and it was a great game when it launched, and there was lots of people playing it when it launched, but nothing has really changed over time. It's still the same maps, the same modes, and people just get tired of it and want to play other things. So as an esports, you know, the viewership declines, the player base declines, and FormaL is sitting here thinking, well, love playing Halo, that's my game, but it's possibility that, you know, the scene ceases to exist after this year, or at least in terms of the way that it's currently going, it's not going to survive. So that's what FormaL thinks, is like potentially nobody of the current Halo crop is going to play it again next year. We don't know what the future of the Call of Duty League is, but he believes that even on the Halo side, the Halo Championship Series is at some degree of risk. And if this was to be the case, then what's FormaL going to do? Would he just retire, call it a day from competitive Halo, competitive gaming in general? But he thought he was going to do that once, and then he made the return.
Thank you for the T1 for 9, bro. My last year playing Halo, bro. I think it's all of our last year playing Halo, bro. I feel like Halo's gonna die after this year. I'm not gonna lie. Guess we'll see. I think Halo's dead after this year. Which honestly would be fine with me, bro. Why do I think that? I don't know. Just a hunch. Just a hunch.
King of the Hill.
So I had to throw this on the thumbnail here from Zenster, right? Halo dead, say less, FormaL, here he goes into the Vegas Legion. But obviously you've got to think as well, given the fact that the upcoming game is a tryout game, the rumours I've heard is that it's very promising indeed, this upcoming year's tryout game. And then the year after that is, I wouldn't say a Black Ops 2 remaster, but apparently not too far away, a Black Ops 2.5 or something. So the next 2 years in a row, both tryout games, both probably going to be some of the best CODs we've had in the last several years. So if you're FormaL, you're thinking, well, you know, if Halo kind of comes to a natural conclusion of the Halo cycle, which always happens until they release another Halo, and then it happens all over again, you know, we've seen it a few times at this point, then maybe a COD return is on the cards. Of course, the issue is, if you're FormaL, when he decided to move to Halo, his absolute intention was to get on the OpTic Halo team, which he eventually did, you know, finessed his way on there. Not finesse, he was one of their greatest players, but, you know, Pistola was eventually dropped, FormaL came in, he spent some time getting loaned out to other teams, and it seems kind of unlikely that FormaL will just be able to step back into the OpTic Call of Duty team, right? And therefore, if FormaL does, you know, if FormaL does look to return to CoD, or if Halo does come to an end, it's going to be difficult to imagine how and when that might potentially be the case, but I guess we'll have to stay tuned. It's an interesting one to have a look at. But the other clip I shared there, of course, was on the future of the map pool as it presently stands. JP saying that as far as he's aware, as far as he's concerned, Rio is definitely in for Terminal. So this is good to see the pros have actually done something, right? It's better than them not doing anything at all. We did see last year, right, Expo came in and, you know, instead of Fortress Control, there's been a few things over the last couple of years, map pools that have changed. Cold War especially, there was quite a lot because, you know, Express Search and Destroy came in, Standoff Search and Destroy came in, Apocalypse came in as a hardpoint map. So there are a few things that went around in that game, and I think it's possible that we could have like a 7 hardpoint map pool. I know that they were mentioning this on the Flank the other day, that back in Black Ops 3, there were 7 Search and Destroy maps. They were, let's see if I can just do a quick memory. If it's Black Ops 3, I should be good. Breach, Fringe, Evac, Hunted, Redwood, Infection, and Stronghold. I guess that's your 7. And 7's quite a good number for the way the vetoes tend to work, so that was a viable option. I think in GVs and stuff, Hunted and Evac weren't really played so much. It was generally the other ones. But it's possible that we can have a 7 map pool here in this game. I'm not sure that'd be wise, because I think some of the maps, such as, well, Karachi's pretty good. I think it's actually one of the better maps, if not the best map in the game, to be fair, at the moment. Unfortunately, the hardpoint is not as good now as I think it used to be.
Can you see Rio in the map that releases Wednesday replace Invasion Terminal? Rio for sure replacing Terminal. I'm not sure about the Vista though. Like I was saying before, I just don't know if it's going to be on an esports build. If it's good though, like, you don't think Terminal's that bad in the new update? Yeah, honestly, dude, we played the new Terminal for the first time yesterday and it didn't even look that bad, but people were saying that, like, I mean, if there's going to be one that's going to be gone, it's probably that, I would assume. But I don't know. I just think Rio will be played. You think Invasion needs to go? Dude, yeah, dude, why the f did they change Invasion P1? I thought that Cafe was a great P1, I'm not gonna lie. Do you feel the patch is better on the old patch in terms of hills, locations, and spawns? I think some of the locations are better. Like, I think, honestly, even though Terminal is, like, still bad, like, I like the Terminal locations better than what it was, like, previously. Invasion, here, I'll pause this. Invasion, P1 is worse. I don't like P1 being B-Dom. P2 is the same, P3 is the same. Mid-court, I mean, if we're talking about the, like, P4, P5, I think P4, P5 is better on the new Invasion just because you don't have to break Tree and Palace Hill. I think those are just, like, really, I mean, at least P5 was just stupid to break.
But there has been some talk as whether Terminal's actually not too bad. I think that Rio is definitely a map that we want to be having in the game right now. It's better than the majority of the maps. It's designed in a pretty reasonable way. The pros like it because it's very fast-paced, right? So, like, you can get 35, 40 kills on this map. It's 2 SMGs, 2 ARs, generally speaking. It just makes a lot of sense. So, pretty much all the pro teams in agreement Rio is the map to come in. Terminal to be gone is definitely interesting. I'm not sure it's, like, unanimously the worst, but I think most people would agree that it's probably not great. They changed it quite dramatically, and I think that it's improved in some ways as a map. I don't think everything they changed needed to be changed. The P4 change for Burger Hill is definitely a positive, but, you know, you look at the spawns. The problem that you find is that, you know, this team spawns very close to P1, and it's pretty easy to lock down the first set of time in the bookshop there because P2's coming from the low grounds and they spawn further away basically. So it's not exactly ideal, I wouldn't say, the way that Terminal is. And, you know, we've seen some clips, for example, from Dashy here, just spawn trapping people again and again and again. And I always do wonder, like, if all the effort that Sledgehammer put into changing the maps and changing around when the hardpoint locations, all this type of stuff, if they put that effort into just changing the spawns instead, would we be in a better spot or a worse spot? I guess that's the question. So Terminal gone, not Invasion. I guess Invasion would be the other one that people looked at. It's probably still better than Terminal, I would say. Invasion, I don't really like it. I don't think they should have changed P1, but I still think it's probably better than Terminal. So that's what the pros have decided anyway, and Rio is in instead. I guess the question is anything going to happen in the other game modes? Because people would say Search and Destroy right now is probably pretty good, although Rio Search and Destroy is maybe worthy of consideration. That hasn't really been discussed, it seems, as of yet. There's also, though, the controls, right? You've got, you know, high-rise control. People don't really like that one. At least I see a lot of the fans saying, oh, high-rise control's got to go or whatever. I think it's actually pretty good to watch competitively, and I don't think it's bad to play either, because 3 is like the number. Karachi control is, I think, pretty fantastic, actually. Invasion control, we saw a lot of it at the major, and it was frustrating me, but it did get better and better. People were starting to find out ways to win offenses. And then high-rise control, I think, actually gives some possibilities, because you can spawn trap heavily, so I don't mind that rotation and control, to be honest. Maybe Rio control is worth a try, but I think the fundamental concern for the pro teams was the hardpoint rotations, so this makes sense. The other question that we have to mention, though, just as I share this to close out the video, is on Vista. So there's a few new maps arriving into the game in just a couple of days' time. There's a map called Vista. It looks actually pretty fantastic on the overview, and it looks like it could be competitively viable, and it's designed in a similar way to the way that Centrum have designed Rio. The problem is, it arrives into the game in a few days' time. Once it does arrive, will it be in the esports build, as JP was saying there? And if it isn't, then, well, the pros can't play it. And if it is, then do they have enough time? The pros sometimes, you know, they might be happy with this. Rio for Terminal change, are they going to go out of their way to test Vista on the other game modes? are they going to have the time to do so before the major? They probably do, but whether they'll actually execute on that is another question entirely. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.